She's standing in the doorway, laughing, actually laughing, as she throws his daughter's medication bottles onto the wet pavement, and in exactly 6 minutes and 47 seconds, her entire world is going to shatter in the most spectacular way possible. But right now, she has no idea that the man she's humiliating just became worth more than she'll earn in 100 lifetimes. Hey, beautiful souls, welcome back to the channel. I can't wait to share this absolutely unbelievable story with you today. Drop a comment right now and tell me where you're watching from. Are you cozy at home, on your commute, taking a break at work? I want to know. And listen, if you haven't subscribed yet, do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button, because the story I'm about to tell you, it's one of those stories that'll make you believe in karma again. It'll make you want to hug your loved ones a little tighter tonight. So here's what you need to know up front. Jack Chin, 34 years old, stands in the rain watching his wife of 9 years pack his life into garbage bags, while his 8-year-old daughter Emma sits in their beat-up Honda, too weak to even cry anymore. And what Catherine doesn't know, what she can't possibly know as she screams about him being a worthless provider, is that 3 hours ago, a lawyer called Jack 17 times, because Jack's estranged uncle, the one nobody talked about, the tech billionaire who disappeared to Singapore, just passed away and left everything to the nephew who once sent him a handwritten birthday card when everyone else forgot he existed. But here's the thing that's going to keep you glued to this story. Here's what makes this so much more than just a revenge fantasy. Emma has exactly 4 months to get a treatment that costs $750,000, a treatment Catherine said they'd never afford, so why even hope? And Jack has been working three jobs, sleeping 4 hours a night, selling everything he owned, and he was still $400,000 short. And the question that's burning in your mind right now should be, what is Catherine going to do when she finds out she just kicked out the one person who could have saved her daughter's life, the daughter she's now legally fighting him for custody of, and how much do you want to bet she's going to come crawling back? Jack wasn't always this broken-looking man standing in the rain. Let me take you back 6 years, because understanding who these people really are is crucial to appreciating what's about to unfold. Jack grew up in foster care, bounced between 7 families before aging out at 18, never knew stability, never knew unconditional love, until he met Catherine at a hospital volunteer program. She was this bright, ambitious medical student, and he was the janitor who stayed late to read donated books in the children's ward, and their first conversation was about Emma Lazarus's poetry. Isn't that ironic given his daughter's name? Catherine back then had dreams of running free clinics in underserved communities. She had this light in her eyes when she talked about helping people, and Jack fell in love with that light, with the idea that someone like her could see something worthy in someone like him. When Emma was born, Jack made a promise. He literally whispered it into his newborn daughter's ear while Catherine slept. You will never feel unwanted. You will never wonder if you're enough. You will know every single day that you are loved. And he kept that promise. He kept it through Emma's diagnosis at age 5, through Catherine's slow transformation from idealistic doctor to bitter, status-obsessed woman who resented that Jack's freelance graphic design work from home meant he wasn't ambitious enough. Emma, this little girl, she's not just sick. She's magic. She's the kid who writes poetry about stars even when she's too weak to go outside and see them, who draws portraits of her parents as superheroes even though she hears them fighting through the walls, who asked her father last week if heaven has art supplies because she wants to keep drawing, and Jack hasn't told Catherine about that conversation because he knows. He knows deep in his bones that Catherine is looking for a way out, that she sees Emma's illness as an anchor dragging down her social climbing aspirations. And Catherine, here's the complexity you need to understand. She's not a cartoon villain. She's a woman who grew up poor, watched her mother clean rich people's houses, who clawed her way through medical school with scholarships and spite, who genuinely loved Jack once but has been drowning in resentment and fear, terrified that Emma's medical bills will trap her in the poverty she fought so hard to escape, and somewhere along the way, her survival instincts twisted into something cruel, something that tells her the only way to save herself is to cut loose the weight, even if that weight is her own dying daughter. The eviction happens on a Tuesday because apparently life-shattering moments don't wait for convenient timing, and it starts when Catherine comes home early from her shift at the private practice, the fancy one in the nice part of town where she treats wealthy clients' minor ailments and pretends she's fulfilled. She finds Jack at the kitchen table surrounded by medical bills, loan rejection letters, and he's on the phone literally begging, his voice cracking as he talks to another specialist about payment plans, and something in Catherine just snaps. "I want a divorce," she says, flat, emotionless, like she's ordering coffee, and when Jack tries to speak, tries to tell her about the experimental treatment he's found, she cuts him off. "I want you out today, and I'm filing for full custody because you're clearly mentally unstable. Look at you, you're obsessed. You can't provide stability." Jack feels the room spin because he knows what this means, knows that Catherine has been documenting everything, has been building a case, has probably already talked to a lawyer, and he realizes with horrifying clarity that she's not leaving him, she's erasing him. The argument escalates. Neighbors will later report hearing screaming, and Catherine starts throwing his things into bags, and when Emma, pale and trembling, comes downstairs asking what's happening, Catherine says something unforgivable. "Daddy's leaving because he can't take care of us anymore," and Emma looks at Jack with these huge, confused eyes, and he watches his daughter's heartbreak in real time. That's when Jack's phone rings for the 17th time, that unknown number, and Catherine snatches it, screams, "Stop calling my husband," and throws the phone into the sink full of dishwater, and Jack is grabbing Emma's emergency medication, her stuffed rabbit named Dr. Flops, and he's being shoved out the door, and the last thing he sees is Catherine's face, twisted in what looks almost like satisfaction, like she's finally free. What Jack doesn't know yet, what he'll discover in exactly 47 minutes when he drives to a coffee shop to use their Wi-Fi and check his email, is that his uncle Raymond Chen, the uncle who disappeared into Singapore's tech scene 20 years ago after a family falling out, died 2 weeks ago, and Raymond's lawyer has been frantically trying to reach Jack because the will is crystal clear. Jack inherits everything: the house in Sentosa, the investment portfolios, the stake in 3 successful startups, conservatively valued at $107 million, and there's a letter Raymond wrote explaining that Jack was the only family member who remembered him as human, who sent that card on his 60th birthday with a hand-drawn picture from 5-year-old Emma, and Raymond had been following Jack's life from afar, knew about Emma's illness, and the inheritance comes with one condition: Jack must use it to build the life he deserves and help others who feel invisible the way Raymond once did. Jack sits in that coffee shop parking lot, Emma sleeping fitfully in the back seat, and he reads the email from the lawyer firm 3 times, because his brain can't process the numbers, can't reconcile the reality of being homeless with being worth more than $100 million. His first instinct isn't revenge. That's the beautiful thing about Jack. His first instinct is calling the specialist about Emma's treatment, and when the doctor's office says they can schedule her for next month if payment is confirmed, Jack starts crying, just completely breaks down in his car, and a concerned barista knocks on his window to ask if he's okay. Meanwhile, Catherine is at home, already calling her lawyer friend, already spinning the narrative. Unstable husband, obsessive behavior, can't provide for child, and she's on dating apps. She's literally on dating apps the same day, swiping through profiles of doctors and lawyers and entrepreneurs, and she tells her best friend Simone, "I finally feel like I can breathe, like my life is starting." But here's where it gets interesting. Here's where the universe starts tightening the noose. Catherine's hospital gets a new donor, a massive anonymous donation to their pediatric wing with one specification: all treatments for children with Emma's specific condition are now fully funded, and Catherine hears about this at work, and there's this tiny flicker of something, maybe regret, maybe recognition that this is exactly what Emma needed, but she pushes it down because acknowledging it means acknowledging what she's done. Jack, guided by the lawyer, starts the process of accessing his inheritance, but there's paperwork, there's verification, there's going to be a 3-week delay, and in that time, Jack is living in a motel with Emma, cooking meals on a hot plate, doing his freelance work in the lobby's Wi-Fi, and Emma asks him one night, "Daddy, does Mommy not want me anymore because I'm sick?" And Jack has to step into the bathroom to cry, where she can't hear him. The custody battle begins. Catherine has money for a good lawyer, has documentation of Jack's recent instability, has her respectable career and nice house, and Jack shows up to the preliminary hearing in his one good suit, still not revealing his inheritance because his lawyer advises him to wait until it's fully processed. And the judge grants Catherine temporary custody, with Jack getting supervised visitation twice a week, 2 hours each time, and Jack watches Emma leave the courthouse, holding Catherine's hand, looking back at him with confused, heartbroken eyes. Catherine starts her dating life, goes out with a successful cardiologist named Derek, tells him she's recently separated, leaves out the part about having a sick daughter, and Derek is charming, wealthy, everything Catherine thinks she wants, and she posts subtle photos on social media, her at nice restaurants, her looking happy and free, and Jack sees these because he can't help himself, and each photo is a knife in his chest. But the tension really escalates when Emma has a medical emergency during Catherine's custody time, a severe episode that requires hospitalization, and Catherine calls Jack in a panic, and he drops everything, drives like a maniac to the hospital. And when he gets there, he finds Catherine in the hallway, and she's crying, actually crying, saying, "I can't do this, I can't watch her die." And Jack sees her fear, sees that beneath all the cruelty is a woman who's terrified and has chosen the cowardice of running away, and he feels something unexpected: pity. The hospital bill for that emergency visit is $47,000. Catherine's insurance covers $30,000. She's on the hook for $17,000, and Jack quietly pays it through the hospital's financial services, anonymously, because Emma needed the treatment, and he won't let his daughter suffer because of adult failures. But Catherine doesn't know this. She just knows somehow the bill was handled, and she's suspicious, confused. Emma, recovering in her hospital bed, asks to see both parents together, and she's 8 years old, but she's wise beyond her years because suffering does that, and she says, "I don't want you to fight anymore. I just want to not hurt, and I want us to be a family." And Catherine leaves the room, can't handle it, but Jack stays and reads Emma her favorite book about a caterpillar who thinks she's dying but is actually becoming a butterfly, and he changes the ending, makes it happier, because his daughter needs hope more than she needs realism right now. 3 weeks and 2 days after the eviction, the inheritance fully processes, and Jack's lawyer calls him with news. Everything is ready. The money is accessible. The properties can be transferred. And there's more. Raymond had set up a trust fund specifically for Emma's medical care years ago after receiving that birthday card. A fund that's been growing, and it's currently worth $890,000. More than enough for her treatment and years of follow-up care. Jack sits in that motel room, Emma at a supervised playdate he had to arrange through the custody agreement, and he makes a decision that will define everything that follows. He's not going to tell Catherine about the money, not yet. He's going to let her make her choices, show her true character, and then, only then, will she learn what she's lost. But here's the twist that changes everything, the revelation that makes this so much more than a simple revenge story. Jack discovers in Raymond's personal effects that his uncle had been in contact with Catherine, actually in contact with her. 6 months ago, Raymond's assistant had reached out to Catherine to discuss potentially funding Emma's treatment, completely anonymously through a foundation, and Catherine had actually refused because she didn't want to be indebted to strangers and she wanted to make our own way. But really, Jack realizes as he reads the email chain, she had already been planning her exit and didn't want anything tying her to Emma's ongoing care. Catherine had known there was help available, had known there was a way to save Emma, and she chose to say no because she was already emotionally detaching, already preparing to leave. And this revelation, this proof of premeditated abandonment, it changes something fundamental in Jack, hardens something that was too soft, too forgiving. The same day Jack learns this, Catherine is at a charity gala with Derek, the cardiologist, and she's wearing a new dress, expensive, and she's laughing, posing for photos, and someone from the hospital mentions the mysterious donor who funded the pediatric wing, mentions that rumor has it. It's connected to one of the patient families, and Catherine feels this weird twist in her stomach, but pushes it away. Jack begins the treatment arrangements for Emma, flying in the specialist, setting up everything through the hospital's new donor program that he created. And when Emma's case is reviewed, the doctors are shocked, amazed that suddenly she has access to the cutting-edge treatment that could save her life. And they call Catherine because she's the custodial parent. They need her consent, and Catherine is confused, suspicious, asking how this is possible, demanding to know who's paying, and the Hospital can only tell her it's through the anonymous donor program. Catherine calls Jack. First time she's initiated contact since the eviction, and her voice is different, uncertain. Did you do something? The hospital says Emma can get the treatment. They won't tell me how. And Jack, standing in his new penthouse apartment that he hasn't told anyone about yet, says very calmly, "Does it matter how? Our daughter can be saved. Isn't that enough?" And Catherine hears something in his voice, something she's never heard before, something like power, like control, and she realizes suddenly that she doesn't know this man anymore. Maybe never did. The treatment begins. Emma is admitted to the hospital's best pediatric suite, and she's surrounded by toys, books, art supplies, everything a sick child could want. And Catherine visits and sees all this, sees the private room, the specialized care team, sees her daughter actually smiling, and she asks the nurse, "How much does all this cost?" And the nurse says cheerfully, "Oh, it's all covered through our new program. Your daughter is very lucky." And Catherine feels this growing dread, this sense that reality is shifting beneath her feet. Derek starts asking questions. Why does Catherine seem distracted? What's going on with her kid? And Catherine realizes she's never actually told him the full truth about Emma, has been presenting herself as a woman unburdened by complicated responsibilities, and when she tries to explain, tries to say her daughter is sick but getting treatment now, Derek gets this look on his face, this calculation, and Catherine sees herself reflected in his eyes, sees the same cold assessment she showed Jack, and something cracks inside her. The midpoint revelation culminates when Catherine goes to the hospital late one night, after visiting hours, and she sees through the window of Emma's room that Jack is there. He's not supposed to be there, it's not his custody time, but the staff clearly know him, clearly respect him. They're treating him like he belongs there, and Catherine watches as Jack reads to Emma, watches as specialized doctors consult with him, defer to him. And she realizes with growing horror that somehow, impossibly, Jack has power here, has influence, and her mind starts racing through possibilities, none of them making sense, all of them terrifying. Catherine's paranoia turns into obsession. She starts investigating, starts making calls, and she discovers that the motel where Jack was staying, he checked out weeks ago, and nobody knows where he lives now. His freelance clients mention he's been traveling a lot, making big changes, and Catherine can't find him on social media anymore, can't track his digital footprint, and for the first time she feels what Jack felt. Powerlessness, invisibility, erasure. Emma's treatment is progressing beautifully. The doctors are optimistic, and Emma asks about her daddy constantly, wants him there more than she wants Catherine there, and Catherine has to face this reality, has to watch her daughter light up when Jack arrives for his supervised visits and remain subdued, polite but distant, when it's just Catherine. The custody evaluation happens. A court-appointed psychologist interviews both parents, and Catherine presents her case. Stable job, nice home, can provide structure. But when the psychologist asks about Emma's medical care, asks about the decision-making around her treatment, Catherine stumbles, can't explain how it all came together, can't take credit for any of it. And she realizes her whole case is built on a foundation that's crumbling. Derek breaks up with Catherine, says he's not ready for the complexity of dating someone with a sick kid, and Catherine sees the irony, sees that she's being abandoned the way she abandoned Jack, but she can't articulate this, can't admit it even to herself, so she just gets angry, bitter, starts drinking wine alone in her big empty house. Jack, meanwhile, is living two lives. Publicly, he's still the struggling single dad fighting for his daughter, but privately, he's meeting with financial advisors, setting up foundations, planning a future that's so big, so transformative, that it scares him, and he's dealing with his own darkness, his own temptation toward revenge, because it would be so easy to crush Catherine, to expose her, to take everything. But he looks at Emma's face in the hospital bed and remembers that she asked them not to fight, and he's torn between justice and mercy. The darkest hour comes when Catherine, desperate and confused, hires a private investigator to follow Jack, to figure out what's happening, and the investigator comes back with photos. Jack entering luxury buildings, meeting with lawyers in expensive suits, driving a car that costs more than Catherine makes in a year, and Catherine's mind breaks a little. Can't reconcile these images with the man she kicked out. Can't understand how this transformation happened so quickly. She confronts Jack at the hospital, pulls him into a private waiting room, and she's shaking, demanding answers. Who are you? What's happening? How are you paying for all this? And Jack looks at her with these calm, almost sad eyes, and he says, I'm the same person I've always been, Catherine. You just never actually saw me. And she slaps him, actually slaps him, and the sound echoes in that little room, and Jack doesn't react, just touches his cheek and says, I forgave you for a lot of things, but I'll never forgive you for making Emma think she wasn't enough reason to stay. Catherine breaks down, completely breaks down, sobbing, saying she was scared. She couldn't handle it. She didn't mean for things to go this far, and Jack lets her cry, but he doesn't comfort her, and his silence is louder than any accusation. Emma has a setback in her treatment, not life-threatening but serious, and both parents are called in, and they have to sit together in a doctor's office hearing about complications, additional procedures needed, and Catherine reaches for Jack's hand instinctively, and he lets her take it, and for a moment they're just two terrified parents again, and Catherine whispers, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. And Jack whispers back, sorry doesn't change what you did, but Emma needs both of us to be strong right now, so we'll deal with this later. The private investigator delivers his full report, and Catherine learns everything. The inheritance, the timeline, the fact that Jack became wealthy literally hours after she kicked him out, and the number, $107 million. She sees that number and she can't breathe, can't process it, and she realizes she didn't just leave Jack. She didn't just abandon Emma. She destroyed her own life. Threw away a fortune, threw away a man who loved her, and for what? For Derek, who left at the first sign of complexity, for a fantasy of freedom that turned into loneliness. Catherine's best friend Simone comes over, finds her on the kitchen floor surrounded by the investigator's report, and Simone reads it and says what Catherine is thinking but can't say. You didn't just mess up, you destroyed everything, and I don't know how you come back from this. And Catherine asks, what do I do? And Simone says, I honestly don't know if there's anything you can do. You showed Emma and Jack who you really are, and you can't unsee that. The darkest hour ends with Catherine at rock bottom. Her relationship with Emma is damaged. Her custody case is falling apart because Jack's lawyers are suddenly very good and very aggressive. Her dating life is a disaster. Her friends are distancing themselves, and she knows that Jack has the power to completely destroy her, to take Emma away entirely, to make her pay for everything she's done. And she's waiting for the hammer to fall, waiting for the revenge she knows she deserves. Emma's treatment succeeds. The doctors announce that she's in remission, that the experimental therapy worked beyond their expectations, and Emma gets to ring the bell that signals the end of treatment, and Jack is there, crying, holding his daughter, and Catherine is there too, but she's on the outside of their joy, watching, and Emma looks at her mother and says, Aren't you happy, Mommy? And Catherine says, yes, baby, so happy. But Emma is old enough now, wise enough from suffering, to know when adults are lying. Jack makes his decision at that moment, watching Catherine pretend to be happy while clearly drowning in regret and fear, and he realizes that destroying her won't heal anything, won't make Emma whole, won't honor the gift Raymond gave him, and he decides on a different path, a harder path, the path of forced growth rather than revenge. He calls Catherine, asks her to meet him at a coffee shop, neutral ground, and when she arrives, she's defensive, armored, expecting an attack, but Jack slides a folder across the table, and inside is his proposal, joint custody, 50-50, but with conditions. Catherine has to go to therapy, actually deal with her trauma and fears. She has to rebuild her relationship with Emma slowly, earning trust back. And she has to be honest, brutally honest, about why she left, what she was running from. And most importantly, she has to stop running. Catherine stares at this proposal, can't believe what she's reading, because buried in the conditions is also this. Jack has established a trust fund for Catherine, not huge, but enough to pay off her debts, to give her breathing room, to remove the financial fear that twisted her into someone she hates. And he's done this not because she deserves it, but because Emma deserves a mother who isn't drowning. And the condition is Catherine has to use this money to heal, not to escape. Why? Catherine asks, and her voice is broken, small. "Why are you doing this? I deserve nothing from you." And Jack says, "You're right, you don't deserve this, but Emma deserves parents who are both whole, both present, both trying, and I can give you the resources to become the person you should have been. But you have to do the work, you have to choose it every single day." Catherine starts therapy, starts the hard work of understanding her own fear and resentment, starts journaling, processing, and she reads back through her own words and sees the progression of how she dehumanized Jack, how she convinced herself Emma's illness was a burden rather than a call to love harder, and it's painful, humiliating, but necessary. Jack starts his foundation officially, the Raymond Chin Foundation for Invisible Families, dedicated to helping families with chronically ill children, covering medical costs, providing housing, offering support, and he hires a staff, builds a team, and he's good at this, surprisingly good, because he's lived it, knows exactly what these families need. Emma comes home from the hospital, healthier than she's been in years, and she splits her time between Jack's penthouse and Catherine's house, and it's awkward at first. The transitions are hard, but slowly, day by day, both parents show up for her, and Emma starts to believe maybe, just maybe, she can have both of them in her life. The turning point accelerates when Jack does something unexpected. He tells Catherine about Raymond's letter, about the birthday card Emma drew when she was 5, and he shows her the card, this crayon drawing of a birthday cake and a smiling old man, and he says, "Emma's love saved me before I even knew I needed saving. Her simple act of kindness created a chain reaction that led to this moment. And if she can do that at 5 years old, who are we to do less?" And Catherine finally understands that Jack isn't just being generous, he's showing her what unconditional love looks like, the kind of love she failed to show. Catherine writes a letter to Emma, not giving it to her yet, but writing it as part of her therapy, and in it she confesses everything, her fear, her selfishness, her regret, her desperate wish that she could go back and choose differently, and her therapist asks, "Why can't you give her this?" And Catherine says, "Because she's 8. She doesn't need to carry my guilt." And her therapist says, "Then what does she need from you?" And Catherine realizes she needs a mother who shows up, who stays, who loves her through the fear. Jack introduces Emma to the foundation work, brings her to the office, shows her how the organization helps families, and Emma meets other sick kids who are getting treatment because of the money Jack's uncle left them, and Emma draws pictures for these kids, sits with them, shares her story, and Catherine watches from the doorway one day, sees her daughter becoming someone who transforms suffering into service, and she realizes this is Jack's influence. This is the kind of parent he's always been. The custody hearing happens 6 months after Emma's treatment ends, and the courtroom is tense because both sides have built strong cases. But then something unexpected occurs. Emma, now 9 years old, asks to speak to the judge, and the judge allows it, and Emma stands there, small but fierce, and she says, "I don't want you to decide. I want to live with both my parents, and I know Mommy made mistakes. But Daddy says people can change if they choose to, and Mommy's choosing to, I see it. She's different now, she reads to me and she doesn't look at her phone the whole time, and she cries sometimes but they're different tears, and Daddy says that's healing, and I want both of them because I almost died and I learned that life's too short to not forgive people who are really trying." The judge is visibly moved, grants the joint custody arrangement Jack proposed, and adds a note to the file commending both parents for their commitment to their daughter's well-being, and Catherine cries, not the bitter tears of before but tears of relief, of gratitude, of disbelief that she's being given a second chance she absolutely doesn't deserve. But the real climax comes later, at Emma's 9th birthday party, which Jack and Catherine co-host at the Foundation's headquarters, and they've invited all the families the Foundation has helped. Dozens of people whose lives have been changed by Raymond's gift and Jack's vision, and Catherine sees the scope of what Jack has built, sees the lives saved, the hope restored, and she pulls him aside and says, "I need to tell you something. I need you to know that I see it now. I see what I destroyed. And I'm not asking for you to forgive me or take me back. I'm just saying I see you, really see you. For the first time I see who you actually are." Jack nods, says, "That's all I ever wanted, Catherine, to be seen, and maybe if you had seen me then, things would be different, but we can't go back. We can only go forward." And there's this moment where they both acknowledge what could have been and what never will be, and it's sad but also clean, honest. The biggest twist comes when Catherine discovers something in her therapy work. She goes back through old photos and finds the birthday card Emma drew for Raymond, the one Jack mentioned, and she realizes she was there when Emma drew it. She remembers that day, and she also remembers that she told Jack it was silly to send it, that Raymond probably wouldn't care, that they had more important things to worry about. And Jack had sent it anyway, had driven to the post office specifically to send it internationally. And Catherine understands now that Jack's character has always been there, his kindness, his follow-through, his belief in small gestures of love, and she was so busy being resentful that she couldn't see the man she had. The foundation hosts its first annual gala, a fundraiser to expand services, and Catherine attends, and Jack introduces her to everyone as Emma's mom, and someone who understands how important second chances are, and Catherine gives a speech unplanned, where she admits to a room full of strangers that she abandoned her sick daughter and the man who loved them both, that she let fear turn her into someone monstrous, and that the foundation exists partly because Jack chose generosity over revenge, and her voice cracks but she finishes. If you're here tonight, if you're being helped by this foundation, know that it's not just Raymond Chen's money, it's Jack Chen's heart, and it's bigger than most of us can comprehend. Emma performs at the gala. She's been taking art classes and she's created this huge painting, and it's unveiled at the event, and it's a portrait of her family. Jack and Catherine on either side, Emma in the middle, and they're not touching but they're connected by these streams of color, and Emma explains to the audience. This is called the space between, because sometimes people need space to grow before they can come back together. And that's okay, love doesn't have to look like the movies. The climactic moment happens when one of the foundation's first families, a couple whose son was saved by the medical fund, approaches Jack and Catherine together, and the mother says, "We were told about your story, about how this foundation came to be, and we wanted you both to know that your pain, your mistakes, your redemption, it saved our child's life, and we'll spend the rest of our lives grateful for every part of your journey, even the hard parts, because the hard parts created this." And Catherine finally breaks, finally allows herself to feel the full weight of what she did and what came from it, and Jack stands beside her, not holding her but present, and that presence is enough. The resolution of the central conflict isn't that Jack and Catherine get back together. It's not that romantic fantasy, because some things break in ways that can't be unbroken, but the resolution is that they become real co-parents, real partners in raising Emma, and they both become better people. Jack learns that his worth isn't dependent on someone else seeing it, and Catherine learns that running from fear only creates more fear. And Emma learns that families can look different and still be whole. 2 years later, Emma is 11, healthy, thriving, and she started her own initiative through the foundation, Cards from Kids, where children in the program create artwork and cards for isolated elderly people, closing the circle that Raymond's life created, and it's become hugely successful, connecting generations, fighting loneliness, creating the kind of community that saves lives in invisible ways. Jack has expanded the foundation to 5 cities, helped over 300 families, and he's been approached by other wealthy individuals who want to create similar programs, and he's become this unlikely advocate, this voice for people who feel invisible, and he's found purpose bigger than his pain. Catherine completed her therapy, went back to her original dream, left the fancy private practice, and now she runs a free clinic in an underserved neighborhood, and she works with families affected by childhood illness, and she's good at it, genuinely good, because she understands their fear intimately, and she doesn't judge them when they're not perfect, when they're drowning. She just helps them find the life raft. Jack meets someone new, a woman named Dr. Sarah Martinez who works with the foundation, and it's slow, careful, because Jack's heart is cautious now, but Sarah is patient, and she loves Emma immediately, and Emma gives her approval in the way only children can, declaring one day, "I think Daddy's allowed to be happy again," and Jack realizes his daughter is wise beyond her years. Catherine is single, focused on her work and her relationship with Emma, and she's okay with that, learning to be complete on her own, and she goes on a few dates here and there, but nothing serious, and when Emma asks if she's lonely, Catherine says honestly, "Sometimes, but I'm learning that being alone and being lonely are different things, and I'm filling my life with meaning instead of just filling it." The 3 of them develop this rhythm. Sunday brunches where Jack, Catherine, and Emma meet, neutral territory, and they talk about Emma's week, her school, her art, and sometimes they talk about the foundation, about Catherine's clinic, and they're not a traditional family, but they're a family nonetheless. And Emma creates a new definition of what that means. Emma writes a book, well, a children's book, illustrated by her, and it's called The Butterfly Who Had Two Gardens, and it's about a butterfly who lives between two gardens, and both gardens are beautiful in different ways, and the butterfly learns that she doesn't have to choose. She can love both, and Jack and Catherine both cry when they read it, understanding exactly what their daughter is telling them. The foundation holds its third annual gala, and Raymond's story is told properly for the first time, and Jack has found photos of his uncle, has interviewed people who knew him, and there's this tribute video that shows how one man's loneliness, his feeling of being forgotten, was transformed by a child's simple gesture into a legacy that's saved hundreds of lives, and the message is clear. You never know how your small acts of kindness will ripple outward. You never know who's watching, who's remembering, who's being changed. Jack is invited to speak at a conference about pediatric care and family support systems, and he brings Emma with him, and she sits in the front row. And when Jack talks about his journey, about hitting rock bottom in that motel room, about receiving a gift he didn't earn but learned to steward, about choosing mercy over revenge, Emma mouths the words along with him because she's heard this story so many times. And afterward, a young doctor approaches Jack and says, "I was about to quit medicine. The system is so broken, but your story reminded me why I started. Thank you." And Jack realizes that sharing his pain has become part of his purpose. Catherine receives an award from a medical nonprofit for her clinic work, and Emma and Jack attend the ceremony. And when Catherine gives her acceptance speech, she thanks Emma for surviving, for teaching her what really matters, and she thanks Jack for showing her what grace looks like, and she ends by saying, "I was given a second chance I didn't deserve, and I'm spending the rest of my life trying to be worthy of it. And if there's anyone listening who's made terrible mistakes, who's hurt the people they love, who thinks they're beyond redemption, please know, change is possible, healing is real, but you have to choose it every single day. And some days you'll fail, but you keep choosing, keep trying, keep growing." The final scene is Emma's art show at a local gallery, her first real exhibition, and the theme is Families of Choice, how we build love. And there are paintings of Jack and her, Catherine and her, all three of them together, but also paintings of the foundation families, of Sarah now in their lives, of Catherine's clinic patients, of the elderly recipients of the card program. And the message is that family isn't just blood, it's choice. It's showing up, it's staying when things are hard, and it's also knowing when to give space, when to let people grow, when to forgive, and when to hold boundaries. Jack stands in that gallery, Sarah's hand in his, watching Emma explain her art to visitors, and Catherine arrives, not alone but with a friend from her clinic, and the four adults stand there, this unconventional, imperfect chosen family, and Emma runs over and says, "Did you see the one in the back? It's my favorite," and they all walk together to see it, and it's a painting of a single birthday card, crayon drawn with the title, "The Small Thing That Changed Everything," and underneath Emma has written, "Sometimes broken things break open into something bigger than they ever were whole." The story ends not with a neat bow but with a continuation, with Emma asking, "What should we do to celebrate?" And Jack says, "Let's go get ice cream," and Catherine says, "I know a place," and Sarah says, "I'm buying," and they all walk out together, this mismatched family that shouldn't work but does. And as they leave the gallery, Emma takes both her parents' hands, one on each side, and she swings between them, the way children do. And for that moment, everything is exactly as it should be. Not perfect but real, not easy but chosen, not what anyone planned but somehow exactly right. And the last image is Emma's face, looking up at the sky, healthy, happy, whole, and knowing with certainty that she is loved, which is all any of us really need. And that's where we leave them, walking into their complicated, beautiful future, together and apart, broken and healing and absolutely, undeniably alive. So tell me in the comments, do you believe people can really change? Have you ever had to forgive someone who hurt you deeply? What would you have done in Jack's position? I want to hear your stories because this channel is a community and your experiences matter, and maybe someone reading your comment needs to hear that they're not alone in their struggle, in their pain, in their hope for redemption. If this story moved you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear about second chances, and subscribe because next week I have another story that's going to absolutely blow your mind. And until then, remember, your worth isn't determined by who sees you, it's inherent, it's unshakable. And sometimes the greatest gift life gives us is not the absence of suffering, but the strength we discover in surviving it. And maybe, if we're really lucky, the wisdom to help others find their way through their own darkness. Take care of yourselves, be kind to each other, and I'll see you in the next one. Sometimes the person who walked away simply made space for the life you deserved all along.